for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Well. Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Today is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. Let's do this, man. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This week on Fade to Black, an amazing week. Monday night, R.L. Poole was here. Last night, Grant Cameron, one of the great researchers, talking about 3I Atlas. Tonight, very excited. Danny Goler is with us, talking about the code of reality, DMT, and some other stuff. Get ready. Buckle up, kids. And then tomorrow night, it's our once-a-month AMA AJA, where you get to ask me anything. Yeah. Remember when I used to do that? After every sip of coffee? Remember that? I don't do that anymore. Maybe I need to get back to it. I think so. I think in a weird way, I was, before I bring Danny in, I was talking with a friend of mine earlier today about the old days of radio. The old days of radio before video and all of that. And here I am, I'm going into these, big radio stations and and the staff and the audiences and FCC regulations. But there was something about, no matter how large the audience is, you are reduced to, in a studio situation, and it's so wonderful. It's you, pair of headphones, microphone, your guest, and that's it. And you have this isolation thing, and you can do whatever, and it's the theater of the mind. And you introduce video into it like this, and now I've got to wear a clean shirt. I have to brush my teeth. I got to do stuff like that, and make sure my hair is right, and I'm shaved, and all of it. It's like this thing, and it's a distraction. I do. I truly miss the old days, like when I used to go. Just to let you know, I took a sip of coffee. Tonight, Danny Goler is with us. We're talking about DMT tonight, the code of reality. If you haven't seen his videos, we have the links up for everything below. And you can go and do that and see his YouTube channel, which is incredible. And, of course, his website. Those links are below. Oh, man. The Laser DMT Experiment Discovery. When I was told about this video, I had spoken to a few of Danny and I's mutual friends about Danny and his work, and that I needed to go and check the stuff out. And I did. And it is a life-changing situation. It's a paradigm shift. Go and watch these videos. Tonight, we're going to be talking about all of this and of course, what was revealed, but what it means to us in humanity and the actual fabric of reality. Because these boundaries with DMT if they don't get blurred, they certainly get removed. And I've spoken about it a lot on this show, and I'm very excited to have Danny here. We're going to be doing some stuff together here in the future, and I'm very excited about that. And again, I just want everybody to go and visit his YouTube channel. I know that the moderators have got the links up for that, and check out the code of reality. All right. And with that, I'm going to make this quick and say, welcome, Danny. How you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy.
Yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. And wow, you're coming in hot. No, you're fine. Don't change anything.
Sure.
Let me just check something out here. Okay. All right, we're fine now. Danny, before we get started, huge fanboy here, and I'm going to remain objective tonight. Okay, so I'm going to play it down the middle, to the best of my abilities. But before we get started, you get the first time guest disclaimer. Okay, now,
All right.
it goes like this. Danny, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. We're already friends, but you know what I'm saying. And you have to accept so we can move on.
Sure, I accept.
Yeah, it was simple. That was easy. I'm going to start here. Okay. As you know, we have a lot of mutual friends, and they've all been guests on this show, and we've talked about this subject a lot. But my conclusion, and I want your take on this, my conclusion is DMT is not a drug. It's a key. And there is a big difference to that. And I've done everything. Right? I've done everything. I've done it. Look at the guitars behind me.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been down those roads. And DMT is not that. After my first experience, when I got home, I shouted out. I live alone, right? So you can do this kind of stuff. I went to another world, and I'm yelling, right? And that's the way that I look at it. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't, brought on by a catalyst of something else and an altering it. No, I truly believe I was in another place, period, as real as this one. And it was a key to the elevator to go and do that. That's my take. Am I close? Am I in the zone in saying something like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in full agreement. In fact, one of the biggest allures that pulled me right away into trying to find out what DMT was an old Joe Rogan rant before he had the podcast. It was like 2007, I think, or 6. It was some radio show actually in Ohio, and he was going off about it. And there was a line in there that immediately, I was already into psychedelics since I was a little kid. I was a wild kid, so that wasn't new to me. But he said basically what you said, only he was yelling, and it was a one-liner. He said, it's not a drug. No, he said, it's not like you feel like you're in another dimension. You are in another dimension. And somehow I knew exactly what he means by that statement. But I said, wait a second. He wouldn't be saying it that way unless that's actually what's kind of happening. So then I immediately, my ears kind of perked up. And I was like, what is he talking about? And then I started listening to Terence McKenna. And then that's actually what got me interested in DMT originally. So yeah, you're not wrong. And as you know, as our mutual friend Andrew Gallimore, and actually in his second book, Reality Switch Technologies, he conveys from a neuroscientific perspective that actually, even from a neuroscientific perspective, forget about what I'm saying, DMT is very hard to explain, basically because of what you just said, because it does not follow the same kind of, even when you look at the brain, it doesn't follow the same trajectory of what you would expect to see in a hallucination.
Well, the brain has never seen this other reality before, so it's got to compute and put it all back together. You go outside into your front yard, your brain doesn't need to compute shit. It knows what grass is. It knows what tree. It knows what a street is. You don't. But with DMT, this is a completely brand new world, atmosphere, thing, reality, and your brain is now learning it. That's the way that I feel, and it's so bizarre to say these things and to have people understand, because it's truly, it's another world. It's another thing that you've never experienced before.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. That particular point is exactly what he makes, which is that if you do gentler psychedelics, as call them, which are not that gentle, but definitely gentler than DMT, like mushrooms or acid or whatever, it's more kind of slight departures of your environment. the tapestry might change a little. It kind of, the drug borrows from the environment, right? It makes colors be more or whatever, things more glisten more. But with DMT, it's as Andrew says, it's a complete reality switch. So from a perspective of a neuroscientist, those are those are world models. Your brain always guesses. And like you said, you go outside, grass, it's all normal. It's like, okay, the brain kind of guesses what's going to happen next. And that's what it projects outwards. It's not collecting information like a camera. So it's very hard to explain how all of a sudden it has this completely new set of environments and colors and dimensions. And by the way, to anybody who's never done it before, it's not like a cacophony of nonsense. It's not just like craziness. No, it's super coherent on its own right, just way more multifaceted with so many more, ways of things flowing into one another. But it's not nonsense. That's the thing that really grabs you.
Right. And it's not terrifying. That's the other. There's a lot when, and you're right about, and we're going to move. We have a lot to talk about tonight.
Sure.
But I do want to say this. I listen to all of Rogan's stuff too, including that interview from Ohio that you're referring to, and that forced me into a lot of reading and artwork and things and people's experiences and how they were so consistent. That was the fascinating thing to me, but it also scared me. I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't, right? It was like, that's too intense. And then when I had the experience, that's plural now. It was the most unterrifying, comfortable thing ever. It was amazing. It was just, it's like going to a foreign country that you've never been to before and you're experiencing everything for the first time. You're smiling, you walk, it was like that. It was the opposite of fear. It was very welcoming. That was amazing to me because I had built up so much anxiety about it, and it turned out to be just wonderful.
Well, just one thing to say, just like you, for me, it's always a joyride, but I think we do have to introduce the caveat that it can be terrifying for people, especially people who can't let go that easily. Which, by the way, nowadays it's almost like a pejorative. But no, like it's okay. Like not everybody knows how to just let go, right? And people have different tolerance for novelty. I've noticed. So, like for some people, a little bit outside of the bounds of what they wanted to consider to be true, it feels really uncomfortable. It's something that Terence McKenna used to say a lot, which is that people always in this mode of push, find it. But people rarely stop and ask themselves what they would do if they would. So it's like they never consider what would happen if they actually find it. In every community, whatever it is, your shiny object, there's a version of that. And I actually think it's a very profound realization and is worth thinking about. When I did a few podcasts that have to do with UFOs and things like this. And in this realm, the shiny object is the disclosure, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. But when try and place yourself in your own shoes the day after. Like it's an interesting thought experiment because the build up to it is amazing, right? Everybody are like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Okay, let's say that happens or soon. There you go. Imagine the day after. What do you do with it? Like, what do you go to work? Do you? And that's a really interesting thing to think about. And I think with DMT, that distance collapses for you. It's there. You're facing it. It's for real. And you go, oh. So for some people that just want to put that it's
you're
not
right.
For everybody.
It's a non-trivial point. It's a very powerful point to make. You're so right about that. The day after disclosure, put yourself in those shoes. How, and we all want it, right? We all think about it. We all talk about it. I don't know what that day after is going to be like. I truly don't. And we're so close to maybe having these answers, including other realities and parallel dimensions and parallel worlds. These things science says are real. And one of the things now that's science. That's not you and I in our community, right? We tend to grasp these things. But now science is pushing this on us. I would think that a really good theoretical physicist would benefit from DMT. As a matter of fact, you know what I say? You know what I say? To get your PhD, you must. I'm serious. Wouldn't
Yeah,
that just
if
change the way that they look at everything?
I already have the slogan.
What is it?
If you want to study the sky, you got to get high.
So amazing. Now, so let's jump into what you've called the discovery, and it truly was. When I was told about the video, and I went and watched it, I got to say, it caused a lot of anxiety with me. I mean, because you are, just like you said, you're putting yourself in. Imagine putting yourself in the shoes of exposing yourself to seeing something that is not part of our normie world, right? And you are exposed to that for the first time. That I don't know how you got to that point, but let's talk about that. What led to the discovery?
It's a long story. It stretched. The full story maybe stretches over 10 years. Maybe from the moment I started interacting with the thought of how to get to some answers, maybe 7 years, but it's a long story. That's why the movie that's going to come out at the end of the year is kind of following that trajectory. The shortest version of that is that I've had, after already many years of experience with DMT, all of a sudden, so imagine if I've been doing DMT regularly for like not every day, but like I would do it here and there, and I would loved it. Do it for like over maybe a few years, 5, 6, 7 years maybe. And all of a sudden, this other sets of experiences started happening to me. And to anybody who never done it before, it's going to be on the verge of impossible to communicate how can it even be more of whatever that is. But for anybody who did try it, so imagine the wild experience that you tend to have. Now imagine that all of a sudden arranging itself in a perfectly, very dialed into your pace kind of execution, where it's no longer like you sucked into hyperspace, but literally they would come to my room, like augmented reality. Like imagine, just literally like you seeing like Apple Vision Pro, like that. And at that point, and I started seeing beings, not kind of like in this ethereal realm or just feeling presence or seeing through my third eye. No, like straight up like you. Like
Yep.
tangibility, everything. At that point, I just could no longer entertain the idea that this was just in my head. Now, given I had the thoughts that maybe it's not in my head before, but this was just beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's no way my mind is just fabricating this. So then I started asking the question seriously, okay, is there a way to discern this? Because I was not satisfied with the kinds of answers that I saw online. People either are too ethereal about it for me, or they have some ancient, beautiful story, which I have no qualms or issues with, like, the shamanic stories. That's beautiful. But to me, that's one frame of perception. I don't know if that's actually what's going on. That's a story they're telling themselves, right? So maybe to some degrees they're correct about these relationships, but maybe it's more than that, and it's locked in this story. So I was not happy with these ideas. And I said,
people,
okay.
You're right,
yeah, go ahead.
People struggle with new knowledge and trying to verbalize it and turn it into words. People struggle with that because this is brand new to them. So they do it the best ways that they can. I read the same things that you did and came to the same conclusions, but all after everything that I read, Danny, had nothing to do with my experience.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I would even go as far. Look, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Like, I don't want to take anything away from anybody who believes something strongly. But I'll tell you right away. Like, when I heard these ideas, after I've done it, obviously, quite a few times, when people start saying maybe it's involved in helping you dreaming, I'm like, what? Like, it doesn't look at all the same. Like, it has nothing to do with it. And people kept on repeating it. It was like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So then just something wasn't quite right? So I said, okay, I'm going to go and try and figure out if there's any way we can determine whether it is mind-made, so to speak, or existing on its own side, even when you're not looking, i.e. real. So then I started thinking about it, and that's the lengthy process, which is actually kind of boring because it was just like years and years of thinking about all kinds of things and, trying, and nothing worked, and reading some papers, trying to understand from a physics perspective what can work, what cannot work. The details of the actual thought process were actually quite technical at some point, so that they had to do with the coherence and how it works. So I had to go into like the versus what the pop culture tells you. I had to go to like the details of it, like actually how it works, or how we understand it to work, like how the quantum computers work, how they utilize coherence, how they stabilize coherence, how they break the coherence. Like all of that stuff is very technical. And because the simple idea for people at home who have no interest of getting into the weeds of physics, the simple idea is that in the many worlds interpretation, you have this idea that whatever the wave function is an expression of the totality of all possible histories. Okay. And then in some models, like the Copenhagen interpretation, is like the wave function collapses, and then there's one reality that it actually is, and then the rest of it just stays as potential.
Well, let me explain. That's
Sure.
a great point. That's a great point. And so what Danny's referring to, and I sound like I'm a physicist, but when you have a particle that's acting like a wave, or you have a wave, right, and you locate a specific point in that wave, everything around the wave goes away, and now you're only at the location of that point, and that's the collapse. So the wave, when you're at the point, the wave is no longer a wave. The wave turns into a point of that wave, and that's the collapse.
And this is the particle you observe. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I'm trying to explain it in my
that's
own
good.
way.
And again, if we really want to explain it, we have to go to the mathematics. So, but no, you nailed it. That's the best, like, simplest explanation you can give to somebody who has no interest in getting into the real technicalities. The only difference between the Copenhagen interpretation and the Everettian interpretation, the many worlds interpretation, is that in the many worlds interpretation, you don't think of the wave function collapsing into one particle that you observe, but all the instances of the wave, in other words, all the particles it's made out of, they all exist. It's just that when you make the measurement, that particle decoheres. I know it's a confusing term, because decoheres from what? Well, it decoheres from the wave function, and it becomes part of your world line. So now it decoheres from the wave function, and it becomes just part of your history. But the other ones also exist. So they all collapsed, so to speak, in that instance, but to different histories, and they all executed once. Now, this sounds wild, even though it's a fun way to think about it. But here's the kicker, and this is coming from one of the fathers of quantum computers, David Deutsch, who's the father of the field of the Deutsch equations, which made quantum computers possible. So he definitely knows a thing or two. According to him, and it is true that some people would contend with this, some other physicists, but according to him, you can't possibly postulate any other world in which quantum computers work, and we do know they work, unless the many worlds interpretation is correct.
That's right.
So literally, the simple way of saying it, with the way quantum computers work, is they utilize the lateral fact that computation is being run through all the realities at once. And then we basically use fancy equations to reverse engineer what is the probability of us being this or that part of the wave function. But for all intents and purposes, some leading physicists would absolutely insist that many worlds, in fact, are real. Okay, and that's actually what was in my thoughts when I was trying to figure it out. And I didn't think of it in terms of simulation theory. I just thought, well, whatever the DMT space is, it's some kind of an orthogonal or adjacent or some kind of a dimension, but it must be some parallel world of some sort, or something like that. But I figured, okay, but how do we send a signal? Like, how do they come here? How can I see them and they can't? And then I can't see them, but can they see me when I can't see? Like, I was thinking about all these possibilities. And then I was like, okay, but we know that we can send at least one bit of information in that instance of decoherence. So there's like the second it detects, you can send a signal of some sort between the dimensions. And that's what I was thinking about. And that part, it's a little clunky, I'll be honest, because it's not, you can't justify this as a methodology. But when I started thinking along these lines, hints just started appearing for me, like hints galore, like just like in regular life. And it was quite, it wasn't like small things. It was like random numbers that I would pay attention to, and then it matches some kind of a physics paper that would take me into some conclusion. And again, you know, go and present this as a proof to any physicist, right? They're going to laugh you out of the room. This is schizophrenic behavior, which it is, by the way. But then I figured, you know what? I'm just going to play this game. Let's play a game. I'm going to play this game. I'm not going to tell anyone. And if something comes out of it, awesome. I'll share that. And until that moment comes, I'm just going to play that game. So I played the game. I played the game for years. And let me tell you, usually it's a goose chase. And almost every single time it's a goose chase. So to be quite honest, after years and years of this, and when everything that happened, you'll see it in the film, how I actually arrived at that. But when I thought of the idea of the laser, or to be more accurate, arrived at that conclusion together with my now wife, she was a key of some sort. And then I tried it. When I saw the laser, people ask me always, how did you feel when you saw it for the first time? You know, I don't know. I still don't know. It's a weird.
Did you, I'm not going to play the audio. But let me pop this up here for everybody as I ask you this next question. Let me mute this. You can't hear it. I can. Okay, so this is the laser that Danny's talking about here. So up.
Yeah, those are the characters. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, what was it instant the first time through?
For me, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. For some people, it takes some time. Now we know there's a good percentage of people that takes them some time to see it, but it's a one-way street. You will see it if you keep trying. I saw it from across the room immediately. It was a little blurry in the beginning. I think it has something to do with the amount of information that your brain has to deal with that is completely new. And it is an enormous field of these things. It's like infinitely into the z-axis. It's kind of hard to discern at the beginning what's happening. But when your brain fully resolves it, it kind of snaps into place, and you see this like super clear HD field of these characters doing something. And they're constructed in such a way that they make some kind of a hyper object, which is everywhere. You can project it on your skin, you can project it on anything and any material, and it just seems to be made. Actually, it makes these literally like buckyballs, like kind of like a field of soccer balls, and that this code is arranging itself around, and that it's arranged in these columns that kind of moving around, and they also switch in one spot, like the old airports, you know, like that. Like the character switch or an old suitcase or whatever. So that's kind of how there's a few degrees of freedom. And to anybody, and by the way, I completely understand this pushback that I get from scientists and non-scientists alike, from skeptics, is like, hey man, you're telling us everything. So of course we're going to be influenced if we're going to see it. But I get it, but trust me, there's no, don't worry. One thing to consider is that if you think it's priming, so you should be able to unprime or reprime to something else. But the truth is that no matter what you do after it resolves to that, you can't shake that off. No matter what, imagine whatever you want. Bring what's his name? Oz Perlman, the expert, like it can manipulate your brain. Yeah, whomever you want, bring the biggest world's expert in priming, and have them prime giraffes into your head, or owls, or anything else. You know what? Even language that is different looking enough. So if you're gonna say like Sanskrit or things that we don't know, so it's kind of hard to discern which one is what, then maybe. But ask them to like code a different language into your brain that looks different enough. You can't do it. No, it's always that impossible. And that's why it's not really. And by the way, there's so much specificity in there that I wouldn't worry too much. In fact, one of the things that we're trying to do now is to see, we basically started a nonprofit called Code of Reality. And we do what we call cognitive physics. Now, I'm aware that it's pretty loaded to make up your own terms, but we just couldn't find any better kind of like field description, because it's not quite just pure physics. I guess the way we define it is that the difference between cognitive physics and physics is that in cognitive physics, we no longer take the observer out of the equation. We're saying, even though we know it creates a lot of problems in terms of what mathematicians call a handle, which is like, what is it? Like, what, how am I putting this into the equation? What are you talking about, right? But okay, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to take into account the fact that somebody is seeing it, and how does that fit into the equation of what's going on? We're gonna do our best to not remove this from the picture. And this is what science was in the business of for a long time, which, by the way, it's fine. I have no qualms with that whatsoever. It was necessary to build the beautiful world we now have and allow us to do what we're doing right now.
No doubt.
But it's time that we can no longer sweep the observer under the rug. It's not gonna squash itself. Like, we have to actually address this, and that's what we're trying to do. So what we're doing under cognitive physics, we're trying to see, is there anything we can do at all, physically, mentally, spiritually? However, we're open to anything. Is there anything we can do to influence the code in a way that we will all agree on?
Well,
because
if you did that, okay, so check this out. You brought up Copenhagen, Niels Bohr, whatever, right? You brought all this up, right? I think you even mentioned Everett, right? Okay, so you know the world of physics. Apparently, so do I. But here's the thing. If there is one problem that anybody in physics will tell you is the problem, it's observation and measurement, right? That's the two. So could this fill in those gaps for those two huge issues in physics? Could this be, something that's been the holy grail, right? Could it be the answer?
I think there's a good chance that it would help travel some distance between the seeming insurmountable distance of the hard problem of consciousness. Like, what is it? What is this relationship between the what we are when we observe and the thing that we observe? Because all answers so far from all directions, they're not very satisfactory. They're not satisfactory from physics, because they're like, well, the observer is some little informational wiggle on top of a very large system that doesn't care. I don't know. It doesn't check out in my book. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think you've done enough substances, my friend.
Right.
However,
but isn't that key though? Where here we have the educated physicists, scientists of the world. It's not just physicists, right? It's all of formal education when you get into the sciences. But is this, they want to convince us of simple things like the slit experiment, right? And wave collapse, even entanglement, right? That just observing matter, you can change its state. But I don't believe in ghosts, right? It's like, wait a minute. As a scientist, you're telling me that I can observe something and change its state, but you don't believe in spirituality or other things. It's like, wait a minute, you can't have it both ways, or can you?
So the way that I see it is, it's a battle of frames, and it need not be. So what I mean by that is that the other side of this equation is equally unsatisfactory. For example, people tend more in spiritual communities, which I see myself belonging more to, let's say, they say things like, you create your own reality. It's all just a manifestation of your mind. Walk through a wall. So and then there's all kinds, like, when they're faced with this, to them, what seems not to be a conundrum for some reason, they're like, oh, well, no, I mean, it's all in agreement. Yeah, right? Yeah. We will agree that it's a wall. It's like, do you know that, though? Like, you don't know that. Like, why is the wall a wall? And why is my imagination so much more malleable? That answer needs to be answered, right? So no matter where you look, there seems to be, that's what I mean by battle of frames. People have a frame. So they have kind of like a way they see the world, and they try to make everything comport to that, like they belong to that. Like that has to be the way things are. Under that banner, if you are not open to these observations and you don't do any work on yourself, like most mainstream scientists, like spiritually, yeah, you're not going to be open to feelings of actual energy and things like this. You're not going to feel it because you're not open to that. But equally, I think wrongly, people kind of negate the very obvious. No, you can't fly. No, you can't walk through a wall. And there seems to be a reason for this. So even if you believe, which like myself, that even if like an idealistic perspective, right, which is the universe is just mind, it's all an enormous mind, which I believe that's the case. So I'm very much with Donald Hoffman and Bernardo Kastrup on these things. But you still, if you are interested in answering the real questions, you still have to grapple with the fact that even though it's all mind, for some reason, some regions of this mind collapse into some kind of behaviors that are regular enough to call them the laws of physics. That's okay. Like it's not mutually exclusive. So then now we're cooking, right? Now we're saying, okay, now how do we describe it all together without competing? No need for battle of the frames. If you're spiritually minded, yes, you're right. There's a lot more to this world and what we can do as conscious beings than what scientists would like to admit. You're right. However, you're not right by throwing away kind of like the baby with the bathwater, because science brought about enormous advances because they understood something about what the world is doing that we wouldn't be able to do if we would just, guess all day, right?
No, that's
so
right.
We have
Let me, man, I love this conversation. But here's the point that you're making. Science, you are not going to consciously get rid of an infection in your tooth without antibiotics, or you're going to die. You're not going to think your way out of that. Science has brought us that. But that doesn't mean that science understands consciousness or the power of it and what it can do for you. Is consciousness the answer to everything? A lot of it, but it's not going to replace penicillin or antibiotics. Makes sense?
Oh, maybe everything you said, I fully agree with it. You summarized it perfectly. The way that I resolved this issue, or at least to my mind, with somewhat resolution, we say, okay, instead of thinking about it in terms of competition or who's right, how about we actually reframe what we're really doing? And I think that what we have to do is to basically take science and expand it into what it really is, or what it should be. So for me, capital S science is simply the enterprise of human understanding. Or if you want to go wider, the enterprise of understanding. Full stop. And then what are the modalities you're using to do that? That's up for grabs. So far, this science was defined only as this very tiny sliver that measures the world according to this modality of testing, observation, measurement with external devices. And that's good. We should do that. But we might want to reframe and just think about, okay, what are we really in the business of in science? We're trying to understand the world. Great. What do you do to understand the world? You look at it closely, whatever it is that you're trying to study. You find regularities. You find ways to communicate the regularities and write them in more and more formal ways so they don't have to be repeated in all kinds of different ways. And then you communicate it to others and you watch if they can replicate it as well, right? Sounds pretty scientific. Well, guess what? You just described meditation. If you're talking about the inner world, that is the science of the inner world. You observe really closely at what happens to your inner world when you under certain conditions, and you repeat these, and then you communicate them, and people practice them, and they can achieve the same results. Here you go. Meditation is the science of the inner experience. I don't mean it metaphorically. It is now currently that's the best tools we have. Maybe with more we start merging them. Maybe with more advanced tools like Neuralink, you can have meditators who are really good at this inner science now finding new domains of understanding because they have these extra tools that we use from material science. We basically want to bring a situation where the left and the right hemisphere of humanity start talking to each other instead of constantly thinking that it's some kind of a head-butting competition of who's right about that.
It's such a fascinating. It's a conundrum too, and the conundrum is science will always fight consciousness, right? They have the line in the sand drawn, right? Where they don't want to discuss the C word, but they know it exists, right? And getting into deterministic or no free will and all of that, everything is math and particles are going to do what they're going to do. You've got to get out of that and expand out past it. And that is a difficult thing for scientists. They may think these things and maybe even believe them, but they're not going to talk about them. And they're certainly in public, right? Or in a classroom. It is a tough uphill battle, isn't it?
It is, but I do think I'm a little bit more optimistic. I do see.
Oh, I am too. Give everybody DMT.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
get your P. Let me say something so we can circle back. My first DMT experience. I just interviewed Andrew Gallimore, and it was like on a Monday, and I was like, okay, well, you know what? Now's the time. All right. So I make the phone call, and I do. And I go, and that I did it that Friday. Right. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about what I saw or what I did or this and that. No. We've all heard those stories. But this was the intention that I set. You know what the intention was? Just show me what I need to talk about to the public. And I set that intention all week long. That was my intention. That was it. Now, I didn't have any daddy issues. I didn't need to quit heroin, or whatever. None of that. None of that self-help stuff. Just show me what I need the world, that you want the world to know. You just show me and I'll convey it through media. And so the first thing that happened, and that's all I'm going to say, is my eyes were open, right? And this sign pops out of the wall, and it's an arrow curving down, and it says, "Enter here," right? Dude, and it's like 5 seconds, right? 5 seconds, right? It's a whoop, and it pops out, "Enter here," and I went, okay. All right. And then in front of me on the wall, this door, this whole thing, and the "Enter here." And I just closed my eyes, and there was a voice behind me that said, "Okay, let's go." And I didn't turn around and look. Now, fast forward, I'm driving home. Half hour later, man, I'm driving home, and I'm thinking about the whole thing. That wasn't a hallucination. And I'm resolving it in my head, right? Wait a minute. Okay, it was amazing, but that shit was real. It wasn't a hallucination. That's the incredible thing. And so that's why I think a scientist could, be exposed to this and just go, you know what, man, there is something else going on. Okay, I blocked this off. There is a reason to go forward with this. And that's why I think it's so dynamic and so important.
And I think it's exactly the situation that, eventually when there's enough on the table, which I believe there is at this point, at that point, if scientists are not open enough to revise some of their methodology to include what our direct observation can bring about, it is very similar to the Catholic Church refusing to look through the telescope.
It is a Galileo. Yeah.
It is. It is absolutely. It's the same situation, basically. And it is the insistence that the way we know is the only way to know. And and it's funny how people end up on the other side of the coin when they don't pay close attention.
Quickly too. The universe has a way of slapping people like that, fairly quickly. Okay, so that reality that I'm talking about, and when I say reality, I've stressed this with everybody. It's just as real as me holding this crystal in my hand. Okay, it's like that. It is absolutely that. Period. There isn't another. This isn't pink elephants running around with unicorns, you know, and some Disney cartoon. No, it is a reality. But when you looked into the laser and you saw the code, how real was it, and how quickly did you accept it?
No, it was immediately apparent. Like, it's immediately apparent that it's like,
Right.
oh my God, what? Like it because it's not even just like you would everything you just said.
Mhm.
Only it's actually a lot more mundane in that it just kind of it's like what you would imagine like some kind of a infinite digital clock to look like, but it's super stable. It doesn't have this. This is a point that Chase Hughes made that I would never think about making this point, but I guess he's a neuroscientist, so it came to him. He said that with hallucinations, then there's an unfolding. There's an arc because the digestion of the substance in your system. But the code, you just smoke a little bit and just kind of comes into view. You smoke more, it becomes clear, and then it just dissipates. It's just there. It's almost like you put 3D glasses and you took them off. You put 3D glasses and you took them off, and you just see it. And it kind of hovers in there in some kind of a subspace. So it's not quite true to say that it's in the wall. It's where the wall is, but the space it's in, it's almost like a little disjointed from what the wall is. The only way I can describe it without sounding annoying with these like circular descriptions, you know how if you open in a moving train, if you open one of the carts and you see the other cart like moving, right? Like that in relationship to you, kind of jumping around like this. So imagine that only if there would be a cart within a cart. So like there's another cart moving inside the wall, but the whole structure is super coherent in its own right. The closest thing it is, which is some woman that came to see it, she said this, it looks like you're looking through a microscope into a whole new universe you didn't know existed. It's there. It's just you're just looking at it through this crack of light, basically. And that's how it appears. It super stable, highly specific, and it doesn't have this vagueness. It's like super sharp. People report to me all the time. The most common message I get, the most common email I get, I see the code without the laser, or I see the code without the substance even. And true, some people can see these codes, I now know. But what's interesting is that there's different codes. There's different layers of these codes. What we see in the laser stands out in that it's way more specific than all the other codes that people see, and it's not malleable. You can't change it. Usually people that are spiritually more advanced, they can kind of influence these codes that they see. They can change the content or behavior, things like this. I had people who, not people who just say they are, but like people who have track records that they're kind of known to have like a really good standing record of being powerful spiritual practitioners, came with a lot of confidence. They said, "Oh, I got you. Let me show you." And then they're like, "I'm going to influence it." And Popkiss, like they came out perplexed. They're like, "What?" Like they were so confused. They're like, "I don't understand." It's like, yeah, it seems to be coding for physical reality. Like, so it's not a trivial question about physical reality. Like it's going to be super obscure, but I want to say it anyway because I want people to try this. The biggest question mark in the mind of everything that exists everywhere, I think, is the why. It's, dude, why? Like, what? Like, seriously, like, it might hit you only if you get a little stoned or whatever, but some people are pretty introspective or when it finds you and like it hits you, right? And you go like, dude, wait, but it's crazy. Why anything? Why me? Like, it kind of hits you, right? But that question is always revolving around the me question. Somehow the central thing is the thing that maybe doesn't bother you, but that's the thing that you're asking the question about. Next time you do this, flip it around. Go to the ground, and better if it has some kind of a texture that you can kind of feel the difference. It can be like a table or a rug of some sort, or maybe even a hard floor. You just kind of put your fist to the floor and just kind of like tap it gently, and really be with that moment of the touching it, instead of just assuming, oh no, I know it's all mine. Just wipe that clean, touch it, and go, what is this? What is that that I'm like, what is this touch? What is this? Even if you want to say it's all in the mind, like, but there's something about that. The rigidity of matter is really interesting. It's not just a whatever question. That profundity is encapsulated for me. I'm sure you're familiar with Michael Levine, the biologist who's now kind of revolutionizing biology. And because of the nature of his work, and if you guys are not familiar, I highly recommend you look him up. Is amazing. And because of the nature of his work, seems to be touching on these more slightly metaphysical concepts, even though he's a very, regular scientist who works in a lab and does things. So they asked him once in an interview, do you consider yourself more of an idealist? In other words, do you believe that mind is fundamental, or do you consider yourself more of a physicalist? And he gave a very interesting answer. He said, I actually think I'm more of a physicalist, with the caveat that I'm not so sure we know what physical is.
Right.
That, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that really struck me. I was like, okay, I think that's try this next time.
Do you think, okay, so observing the code, and again, I don't want to sound basic here, but I think this is on everybody's mind, and I've talked about this a lot only because I have a twisted dark mind and I'm thinking about these things. The code exists around us in infinite all the time. Right now, it's surrounding you. It's surrounding me. Anybody listening to this show, it's here, and it's always been here.
It's
right?
you.
It's always
It's everything.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always been here. After I watched I wanted to say this really quick. I'm gonna make you laugh. After I watched your videos, this was a while ago, but just by chance, the friggin' Matrix is on. And now I wasn't thinking about you, right? I just wasn't. I thought, man, I haven't seen that in a while. Okay, all right, okay, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm watching the intro, the beginning with and I went, oh, that's the code. Oh crap! And it just all came back to me. So I thought, is that prophetic on the Wachowskis, right? And
I don't think so. Oh yeah, sorry.
right?
Finish the question.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I had the both
So-
of you back to back, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So first of all, simulation works in mysterious ways. Secondly, I think my answer to that would be not okay. Maybe I'm exaggerating with the I don't think so. I think it's not quite that, but it is something like that. So I think what it is that artists are very dialed in, and sometimes they have some feeling that they don't even know that it's coming through them, because they think it's either just like it just came to me, like because famously the Wachowski brothers, sorry, now sisters, or one of them went back. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
no.
what? Yeah. So no, I'm not making fun. I truly don't know, because I think one of them.
I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I dived down that rabbit hole when I first found out the news, and I never got a straight answer from anything on their status. That was weird.
The Wachowskis.
That's all
There you go. Famously, they used a sushi menu, and they reversed the symbols, and that's the symbols you see in the thing. But what I think is going on is that, first of all, the simulation does definitely kind of throws you these like winks once in a while to kind of help you get to like the next understanding. And I think this was one of them. They maybe thought that they did it for some other reason, but I think it was more like the simulation was just coming through. And to be quite honest, it doesn't quite look like Japanese. It's more kind of like a hybrid between Japanese, Hebrew, and maybe Sanskrit, but it's none of those things. It's none of them. It's just that we managed to isolate a few symbols that everybody reports, but the rest of it is kind of hard because there's so many of them. They're moving really fast. And there's enough coherence there for you to clock it with your attention when it's moving, and you see it's a thing. But when you try and like focus on it, it's really hard. Like it's really hard to we managed to do it. We have a new website we built called veilbreak.ai, where people can go and share their reports anonymously and create their own kind of repository of it. almost like a repo, literally, and they can see other people's reports, and soon people will be able to also upload their images. And on Discord, we have a bunch of people reporting these, but it's not quite Japanese. Another one that I actually think that another instance like this where it kind of came through art. I actually think that Douglas Adams was actually quite onto something, and he would never think that because he was a sworn atheist and he was a very scientifically minded person. He would completely shun me and everything that I'm doing 100%, and I love him. I was like, it was my favorite series of books, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he only got one thing wrong. So he in the book, sorry, spoiler alert if you never read it, but in the book, the Earth is the computer that calculates the ultimate question. The only thing he got wrong is the scale. It's the multiverse, but it is doing that. The multiverse is calculating the ultimate question. That's basically what all the simulations are for. So I think that very often it comes through the artist in ways that they themselves just don't expect.
You said one thing. I want to jump back before we get to the break about it's a little bit distant, right? Through and one of it's been a while since I've seen it, but one of the people in one of the videos said, it's in the wall. It's not on the wall. And that's what you were explaining with the trains.
It's not on
right?
the surface. Yeah.
Right.
It's not on the surface. It's almost like that itch that you can't scratch in the knee. You don't know where it is. You know what I mean? You're trying to find it and you're like, where is it? It's like inside somewhere. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. But could that be the layers of dimensions? In other words, are you seeing through one dimension and another one and getting to maybe a third dimension back? And that's where you know what I mean? It's still a little veiled.
It's funny that you ask that because I'm constantly working on the theoretical framework. And one of my most recent ideas is that what we're looking at is a fourth dimensional object spinning. And every time it spins into our third dimension, the wall that it exhibits, its three-dimensional surface, every time it spins in our direction, that's where we see the light reflecting. And that's actually what we're seeing. That's why it's so confusing, because it moves out into some fourth dimension that we can't quite understand. And this is where we can maybe approach this more in detail after the break. But I managed to, a few times, to do something with the observation in such a way that it rotated, and then I could see everything in 3D at once, which usually can only happen if you're looking from some kind of fourth direction. So it's almost like the software in my brain can do the 4D rotation, but maybe not the hardware would definitely not be, but even the what would be the firmware of the brain, so like the architecture of the way you perceive the three-dimensional space, can't do it because it's designed for 3D. But the software can. You can teach yourself how to rotate in 4D actually. Now, I don't know enough about it yet to say with enough confidence, but I managed to do it a few times. If we can replicate this in other individuals, then I'll definitely be reporting on this.
Well, Brian Greene, another physicist too as well, but Brian Greene talks about this a lot. And one of the things when he gets into string theory, and I can talk to you about this, I think you understand the basics of this, is that, and you can jump in if I start sounding stupid, but one of the things that Brian Greene says, he goes, look, when we're talking about 11 dimensions, it's not that, although it can be large spaces in between dimensions, but I'm talking about Planck scale distances in between the dimensions and the thicknesses of those dimensions. It's accessing, if you are inside that dimension, it looks normal. But to us, in trying to measure it and trying to make sense of it, we're talking about very, very small things. And with what you are describing to me here, is very similar to what Brian Greene and his math is telling him. It's very similar, isn't it?
No, not quite. So these the postulated dimensions, in specifically what you're talking about, he's talking about M theory, where the postulation the postulation is 11 dimensions, and then the 11th dimension is this infinitely long, infinitely small, curled up dimension, and quite a few of them are super small dimensions.
That's
But
right.
yeah, but not all of them have to be super small. It's just that the reason they postulate that the reason we can't experience them is because they curled up into these tiny spaces. Now there's another. This is one way of seeing it, right? If you look at just classical physics or just the field equations, Einsteinian physics, then the bulk or space-time itself is four-dimensional. Like when you go through wormholes, theoretical wormholes, you're moving through this fourth dimension. Now, again, it depends on the exact frame you're looking at, because some physicists insist that no, it's a natural. So like the four-dimensionality of it is kind of like a natural arising property of its topology. It's not quite the same as an actual fourth dimension. There's all kinds of dances they do around it. I'm just telling you what makes sense to me in terms of everything I've absorbed so far and the theoretical framework we're working with, which is the holographic principle and what we think is happening. The beautiful thing about this is that what I'm saying right now is testable. So like if I'm wrong, certain things can't possibly be true. So if we do these things and they fail, then I'm wrong. Like it's just not four-dimensional object rotating. And that's the kinds of things that we're trying to do in Code of Reality, basically.
Man, that's fascinating. Let's take our break right here. Danny Goler is with us tonight. Somebody posted in the chat at the beginning of the show, and you'll never escape this, by the way.
Sure.
Is this the laser guy?
Oh, that's
fine. Yeah. You're the laser guy, man. You're the laser guy.
They don't do mistakes. The reason I think they're part of the way that they're revealing everything in this way is because they understand meaning better than you can even, any of us can comprehend. This is the most memeable message ever. DMT lasers, DMT lasers. I was like, this is genius. This is so genius. I was like, they thought of everything.
Yeah, let's do t-shirts next. Danny, stay right there. We're going to take our break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month.
I am hosting, speaking, and presenting once again for the Conscious Life Expo, the largest conference of its type in the world. February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. Speakers, event, and schedule easy. Just visit ConsciousLifeExpo.com. I will be hosting and speaking at the Sedona Ascension Retreat, March 20th through the 22nd, 2026 in Sedona, Arizona. An amazing list of speakers, and it's beautiful Sedona. Come and hang out with us and just go to SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. I'm heading back to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd, 2026, in Delavan, Wisconsin, at the Lake Resort. It is beautiful. This is a great conference right in the heart of the Midwest, where I'm from. I'll see you there. Just go to Contact Modalities Expo, that's XPO.com.
I will be hosting and presenting once again at Contact in the Desert. That's May 28th through June 1st, 2026, the largest UFO conference in the world. Come and hang out with us June 23rd through July 1st. Tickets and everything else that you need is at contactinthedesert.com. Want to change your life? Want that paradigm shift? Then visit Peru with Brian Forster and myself for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. A full 10 days of visiting the country, all of the amazing sights, and of course, the celebration of the winter solstice. It's all simple to do. Go to hiddenincatours.com. Come join us for the Monty Python Scotland Tour, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event where you get to go to the castles from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. August 1st through the 9th, 2026. Just visit HaleyARamsey.com. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut.
Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com.
All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, tonight. Danny Goler is with us. We're talking about DMT, the code of reality. We've got Danny's links in the description below on our website and throughout social media. And Danny, you're going to be at the Conscious Life Expo with me this year. What are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be talking about cognitive physics and the horizon of the new horizon of knowledge, as we call it. And it's going to be basically the whole spiel I just gave you in a few words, but with more actual logical steps along the way and what led to what and how we view the future of science and spirituality and how they actually connect. How do we actually bring this about?
Yeah, we need to evolve, right? We've got to continue evolution. And the next step, Danny, I say this all the time. This is great. This is great stuff, right? You and I doing what we're doing right now, great stuff. I love the quantum world. I love science. I love all, but we've taken things pretty damn far. We haven't figured out consciousness. And that is, if we are going to achieve our place in the universe, we've got to just tap out and go and figure out what's going on. And I commend you for not only pushing this forward, but it seems that we have amnesia. I I love traveling the world, and I love to. One of my favorite things to do is to smell the ancient megalithic sites. There's an odor that you get, when you step into these things, but you look and I swear, Danny, all I see is a DMT world when I go to these ancient sites. It's like, man, they were locked in, especially Peru, right? You're like, what did they know and why did we forget it? I'm not far off the mark, am I?
Well, I mean, there was the whole rolling people's heads off staircases, but
well, there's always an outlier. There's always an outlier.
What are you gonna do?
It's kind of funny. Yeah, you go to Chichen Itza, right? And you look up and you're like, man, that's amazing. And then you're thinking, how many bodies roll down those steps? The pile of bodies at the bottom of that after 4 days, right? Of doing what they were doing. But
no, I think you're right. Yeah, I think ancient civilizations definitely. Well, I mean, first of all, they had a lot more attention on their hands. There was not that many people to things to pay attention to, and yeah, they were a lot more dialed into the immediate experience, of course. And just like everything else, the less attention you pay it atrophies. So I think that some portion of humanity continued with the practices of paying attention to our inner world and understood quite a bit about it. And the other half decided we're going to explore the outer world. And this is exactly what we're after. Now, we believe that the laser is one of the first things. There will be others, and maybe they already exist, and that are connecting them. But we also have to play the role of the bridge. We have to understand that and then connect it inside of us. It's almost like, imagine these cables arriving from both ends of these things, but they connect inside. So even when they enter our heads, we actively still have to make the connection ourselves. And then it actually opens both of these channels together in a way that we could never do before. This is why I keep saying it's not a battle. It's not a competition. It's how do you make them fit? And you don't do that by pretending to know things you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, I'm saying this to both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't do that by vilifying and chastising the other side for just doing what they believe is the correct and the best way. And I think that's where the majority of the work is going to be around that, which is just how do you reframe it from competition to collaboration? And then I think most things will simply fall into place. I think that evolutionarily, it did make sense for a little while to play the competition game. It's a good strategy to make things happen. People, it's an energy source, right? It animates you. It's like, we got to be there first. And maybe for certain kinds of things that we've built, that was required, and that's fine. But what I believe is happening is, so when we moved from like simpler needs, like before the agricultural revolution, where it really started like taking shape, the more modern world, mostly because of the arising of surplus. The second you have surplus, you have this like intuition that you want to protect it, and then all the stuff kind of cascades from there. But before that, the need was a lot simpler, and because of that, there was no need so much for these sophisticated. Like you would outcompete the game you're hunting, but not like there would be disputes, but it wouldn't be on this like on these Machiavellian levels. I think that only arose when we started kind of like creating this, mind, kind of very strong sense of mind. And of course, it exists in all primates, but we took it to a whole other level in terms of scale. And I think what's happening now, just like we compare ourselves with the people of the past, let's compare ourselves with the people of the future now. I think that what's happening is that from purely a pragmatic perspective, the reason that we have to shift to a more collaborative model that is the energy, the fuel, that energy fuel that we want to make us want to do things, then competition is because the scales, both space and temporal scales, are going to be so much vaster that all the competition-based models will simply not hold because they're too myopic. They're too short-lived to be able to see the vision in full. If you now, a lot of people at this point kind of like, don't even like the examples of the Kardashev scale just because it's like, oh, you're still with that old thing. I'm just using it as an example. Even if we just want to use something as simple as kind of the idea of the Kardashev scale, right? In terms of how much energy and structure level we can control in the universe. So level 1 controls the planet, level 2 controls the sun, level 3 controls the galaxy, and so on and so on and so on. Okay. If you're going to build a Dyson sphere, right? And again, I have this experience now. I say one thing and people are like, well, that's not possible. Just forget it. It's just an example.
No, well, I'm going with it. I'm going with it.
No, just to anybody who's like immediately like
Right.
ripping their heads off.
It's just you and I.
It's just an example. Yeah.
Right,
so
right.
if you want to build something, an enormous structure around the sun, let's say, you can't go about this in terms of competition because that's a plan you have to devise for 1,000 years. You have to think. You can't think about the next 4 fiscal years. Like it just doesn't work. Like you can't. Well, if they do this, there's just too much uncertainty in these kind of timescales. So you will never be able to compete there. The only way you can do this is if you can create a trust society that allows for this collaborative fuel. So why do we compete? Competition fuels energy. It's like it drives you, right, to do things. Well, you can take drive. You can discern meaning from other things, like, for example, collaboration. But it needs to be in such a way that everybody values it. Because what we derive meaning out of is connection. And in the competition model, the connection comes from people's praisal. So the connection you feel is like, well, you did something good. You arrived there first. You get praised. And everybody wants to be in that position. So for them, that's the drive. For you, it's the drive because I feel good because people are praising me. But if we all start valuing this collaborative model, then all of a sudden meaning is going to start coming through just the interaction itself. It's like we get to sit in a room and think about this really fun puzzle to solve, and we're just going to have a blast. That's really energizing. If and only if the rest of society values it too. Because otherwise, if everybody are competing and you just trying to collaborate, yes, in some cases you might win in small scales, but ultimately you will be kind of, people will bulldoze over you. So we have to just kind of arrive at this conclusion. Convincing people is not going to work. And no amount of incentives or forcing will ever do that. The only way to do this is to make people understand why we have to do that, to make that vision clear for them. So I like to think about it just like people like Elon building physical vehicles to do certain things on mass, on scale. We need to start building conceptual vehicles to help ourselves see that vision of where we want to go and how we want to look when we go there, and then step into it.
Would ET speed that up? Not ET, but the knowledge of us not being alone in the universe, right? And that coming in on a world scale where you have 8.5 billion people suddenly understanding that we are not alone in the universe. Now we have to start thinking like Earthlings and stop competing. We got to get out of the primitive mindset and move on as Earthlings, not countries divided by borders and religions and politics and economy and everything else. No, get rid of all of that and start thinking like Earthlings. Wouldn't ET that reveal? Wouldn't that create a global consciousness?
It would have to do with the exact specifics of how they reveal themselves and for what reasons. So if they reveal
I'm not even suggesting a big reveal. But 3-Eye Atlas cruising by, right? That it doesn't have to stop by, but if it is proven to be not natural,
absolutely,
it's an ET relic, that's all we need, right?
Yeah, but no, absolutely. Well, I'm not so sure that it's all you need because you're still going to have people that would, if they're under the impression that the old model should work, they will still find ways to just capitalize on this and not care about anybody else. Like
Neil deGrasse Tyson is still going to be Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? But yeah, but I'm waiting for that moment too. Now, and here's the other thing. You brought up a really good point. Agriculture allowed the ability to start using your mind because you weren't thinking about survival. Before agriculture, dude, you just had to live through the night. right?
Yeah.
You had to survive, man. Beast, you didn't want to get eaten. These were real, that was your daily thought. How do I make it through the day, sleep through the night so I can get up tomorrow and go and dig for food somewhere, right? But agriculture allowed that to stop. And now suddenly competition is in play, everything else, and you can use your brain for other things besides survival. You know, before agriculture, if you were using your brain, you know, you're out on the savannah going, wow, black holes, right? Well, then all of a sudden you get eaten, right?
Yeah.
you can't be Archimedes, you know, thinking about these things. You've got to keep your family alive and procreate and do all of those things. But agriculture allowed us to move on. You're absolutely right, and start using our brains. Now, I wanted to ask you, God, I'm sorry I was so long-winded with that, but I think about these things a lot. The code itself, where does it originate? What's its progenitor? Where does it come from?
I don't know if so maybe just shortly get into like what my strongest impression of what's going on so far. Since I started doing the whole, like, you know, talking about the laser and all that stuff, a few things happen. One of them is that I started having this very direct communication with them. Before, I also had like a whole years before I discovered the laser, in which they basically would come to my room every night and we would like have a conversation. I would basically be on DMT pretty much the whole day. I would do everything on it. Go to the store, go to the gym. Like I lived on it because I wanted to explore other domains of the world while I'm in the state. But then after I started doing the laser conversation, the communication stabilized in a very coherent manner. Like it became like a phone call. And they changed something about my brain. I know because I literally sat there one time and I felt like something was like on the side of my head, just going tick, tick. I could feel it. And then my experience of the molecule changed entirely. So like I can still have what you would call the psychedelic explosion, but I kind of get to see what allows this to happen. Like I see the machinery behind it. I see the whole kind of like behind the scenes. And in addition to that, I was also given this thing that is kind of like I call it the console. I don't know what else to call it. It's literally a computer console. It looks like a Tony Stark augmented reality menu set, and it has a body also. So just like a laptop, you have the body of the laptop, and then you have menus inside, right? You have whatever the content is. So it has the body part too. It in the video that I made on my channel on Dango Thoughts, there's a video called the thumbnail says the console. Just look for that thumbnail. I think a new visual something. You'll find it easily. Just scroll through it. And I worked with a 3D artist to kind of reconstruct some of this so people can actually see what it kind of looks like. And every time I smoke DMT or ingested it in any form, the console appears. It opens up, it boots up. There's this flower-looking thing that opens up. It's as opaque as this mic. That's how opaque it is. And then it opens up, and the menus come up, and they kind of look like this something like a supercomputer from the future. I will disappoint you. I don't quite know what it's for yet, even though I've had it for years. It's very exhausting to interact with it. My intuition is that it's there to train facets of my attention that I did not know I have. Because there are certain things I can do with the menus only when I focus on it in a very particular way. Like I have to focus on it and not blink, not with my eyes, not with my attention, kind of focus on what you would call the crown chakra, but just this area of the head. And then I literally, one of the menus would dislodge and become available. It's like, come to me. And it's as real to me as like what you described to me. So like, you know, just like super real. It's there. It's just, I'm looking at it. In fact, when we did the extended stages now, I did an intravenous 5-hour DMT experience in Colorado. And the guy who was doing my brain scans, he said, I do see a difference when you're looking at that thing, whatever that is. Like I see a difference in the brain scan. So now, why am I telling you all this? Because for all intents and purposes, a lot of it, I'm not guessing. There's certain things that were conveyed to me directly. However, the reason that I bring it up only once in a while is because I don't know how much I would listen to me if I wouldn't be me. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I
not
do.
because of who I am. Well, if somebody tells me something, even if I love them, person who's really close to me and I trust them and everything, there's so much room for confabulation, for them being confused. But there's just too much room for error here to consider.
And imagination. And
And
imagination.
imagination, exactly. So I don't know how truthful a reporter someone is, right? And because of that, I'm in full awareness of this, and I do not expect anyone to take what I'm saying right now as gospel or something that just like you should believe, right? But if you ask me, Danny, how do you know and what do you know? Here's what I so far know this way, because it was shown to me directly. First of all, they're not going to tell us what the code is. That's for us to figure out. It's a breadcrumb. It's there to. It's designed to for us to understand something. The second we crack something with that, we'll be able to make some real headway. Secondly, it's not clear to me that whomever simulate. And that this is simulated 100%. Just no questions. This is a simulated environment. Now, what is simulated is the environment, not your agency. You're not a puppet. And not outcomes. So for all intents and purposes, just like what you would think would be the case in a physical universe in which you just kind of
free
like
will still in play, and your consciousness, your soul is all in play.
Your perception of it.
Right,
No actual free will, but like your perception of it. Sure. So then
no actual free will. Okay, that's another show. We
can do it on another show. Yeah. That's an incoherent concept.
Let me ask you this really quick.
Sure.
But just by saying that,
Mm-hmm.
right, the no free will thing, and this entire conversation, do you have a degree in physics? Do you have families, members with degrees in physics? Where does this knowledge base come from?
My grandfather was a physicist. I started studying to become a physicist, and then I just made other choices in life. But I always kept on teaching myself. So I do understand some of the mathematics. I do not understand mathematics on a PhD level, but I can read a paper. I can understand what's going on. I can have a conversation with a physicist. Like I like. There's a lot of intuitions that I do carry in that field, and I like to read. I read a lot. So there's all this like philosophy stuff, and it's something that was always very natural to me to consume. So I've built a pretty robust worldview.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make that point. I do the same thing. All I do is read science. When it comes to this, I absorb everything. That I'm in the middle of a quantum course right now, right? And although the math is beyond me, as long as well, when I took physics the first time, I swear, and you're gonna laugh. 1 week in, I was like, I got this. Velocity, mass, okay, all right, okay. This is easy. Anybody can do this. I got to week 2. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this so much. I can't. It seems so simple in the beginning. I was like, oh, I got it. No, I didn't.
It's really funny. It is really funny how confident people sometimes are just because they repeated something they heard in in some pop science show, and they think that's what physicists study.
Just as long as the physicist is translating and interpolating the numbers and the equations correctly, because that's what we depend on.
Yeah,
they are putting it into our 2D reality, right? It's just numbers.
Yeah,
but
language.
You need a really good translator. And as long as I have that, I'm pretty comfortable. I can absorb it. I certainly love it.
And one thing I do want to say, because I think there's a level of respect that is missing from people sometimes. It is fair to say that theoretical physicists are probably the smartest people that ever lived, that walked the face of the earth. Like, they're just their ability to cognize is on a level that it would be very hard to comprehend for people that it's even possible. It's not an exaggeration to say that.
No, it's not an exaggeration, but they're missing one component: spirituality.
And some of it, and by the way, just sorry I'm interrupting you. Today on Third Eye Drops, there was a conversation with Alex Gomez, who's a physicist, who had this awakening moment because he experienced it directly. And he says in his story, I highly recommend everybody watch this conversation. He's great, by the way. And even in the trailer, I saw that Michael posted. Basically, he's saying this. He's saying, I had this experience, full on,
right.
and then he came back and he said, and I asked Mama and Papa, or however, whatever words he used, but he said, I asked physics and neuroscience, what do you have to say about this? And he said, I realized not much, but I know it's real.
I know.
So you're not wrong. Yeah.
No, yeah. Sean Carroll said, I don't want to move on from this because physicists with the agnostic, non-spiritual, non-consciousness world that they live in, they kind of need to be there for the work that they do. And as you get older as a physicist, where you have more freedom, they start to talk about these things a bit more open. But here's the deal. Sean Carroll last year, and it really pissed me off. Danny, I'm telling you, I was sorry because Sean Carroll's really good. Yeah. He's really good, and he's a good communicator. But he's doing an AMA. He does it once a month on his whatever that his podcast is called. And one of the questions comes up, and it always does. So, man, what is consciousness, right? And this is Sean Carroll's answer. I don't even need to paraphrase. This is what he says. He goes, I'm going to imitate Sean Carroll. You can laugh. I don't have time to think about something that doesn't exist. I don't have the time to think about those things. I'm like, dude, what a cop-out.
So first of all, let me tell you, that's a really good Sean Carroll impression.
Yeah. Love that guy. I love that guy. And I didn't want that to turn me off.
Yeah.
What I have to do is resolve in my own mind. That is just where he is at. Because in a weird way, he's not wrong. He can't measure it. He can't throw it in a lab. In the traditional sense, for him.
Yeah. How he sees the world. Yeah.
But yet he can talk about how much he likes pizza, but he doesn't want to talk about consciousness and the ability.
He actually doesn't think it's real. Yeah, sure. But this is the thing. The first thing to say is, look, we all have our moments. I do a daily live, and if I'm too tired and somebody comes to me with something that I just find just like beyond stupid, I mean, even if I could have extended the olive branch and just like kind of bring him into a more welcoming conversation, I'm out of gas. I'm just going to call it stupid and move on. I mean, if that's my conviction. So I get it. We all have these moments. But yeah, you're not wrong. That there's physicists, what they don't understand is that they would actually benefit tremendously from not marrying themselves to such a strong position about something they know nothing about. They are not the experts in that field.
One time, only 2 hits off the vape, right?
It will wipe
That's it.
all of that clean. Yeah.
Everything. It's a brand new day for them. That's all it would take. And what they don't understand, and somebody popped this up in I don't want this to be a big long how to do DMT thing. That's not what we're talking about here. But somebody popped up in the chat about a half hour ago, an honest question that everybody has. Okay, but what about the after effects? How long does it last? And if a physicist really understood that it's that fast on, that fast off, and you are as clear as you ever were in any day of your life, there is no, you know what I mean? There's no hangover. There's nothing. It's just if they understood that, I think that they would absolutely be more open to it. Mm-hmm. Just 5 minutes. In and out. 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes of your time.
It's a famous Terence McKenna riff where he goes like to all the people that always say, you drug people while they're sipping on their whiskeys. It goes like, oh, you think it's all nonsense, my cheerful friend? Would you care to spare 5 minutes of your time?
5 minutes. 5 minutes. I mean, crazy. I've done it twice, only twice. Once was 9 minutes, Okay. Second time was 30 minutes. Okay.
Mhm.
And the second time that I did it, I was like, okay, this time I'm not playing around. I wasn't playing around the first time, but I just wanted to, and I did. It was 30 minutes. And I did 6 hits. 6. I don't even know how I got that thing up to, I don't even know.
You don't even know where your face is anymore.
No,
yeah.
no. I will say this. If there's something fun to say, on hit number 6, I'm holding it out. Let me change cameras here. Okay, I'm holding it out. I'm looking at my arm, and it goes just like this. And my intention was just show me what I need to, same intention. And then my arm turns to diamonds all the way up to my fingertips. And I'm looking at it. Oh, wow, that's amazing. And it wasn't, I didn't giggle like, oh, it's amazing. No, I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. All right, wow, okay. It was fantastical. The second, again, that my intention, and this is what was interesting. Let me ask you about this. Intention was the same. Show me what you want to see. And I asked my guide, I don't know how many minutes into this, maybe 10, 15 minutes, but I asked my guide, I said, okay, can I meet somebody else? And she said, she's walking behind me. She goes, not yet. And I was a little disappointed. I was, but she took me on a boat on a river tour, going down this river. And we're looking at the cities off in the distance. And we're having a conversation. I'm holding on to the railing, and I'm just looking both ways as we're cruising down this river for like 20 minutes, just observing everything. Now, what's important, and this is what I want to ask you, what's important to me in all of this, there was nothing sensational. There wasn't any mechanical UFO elves, right? There, or whatever, no dynamic jaguar, godlike, none of that. No. It was another world, and observing it and watching it roll by. I was absolutely, as a tourist, because that's what you are, right? I'm a tourist, impressed with this other world. And how it's put together and how it is and how it looked. And that's how I came out, like a tourist, like I got my passport stamped, right? And I came off of that going, wow, that was beautiful. That was amazing. Nothing sensational, nothing crazy, no lightning out of this, none of that.
You have very stabilized experiences. It's not always like this.
And do you think that's because of the intention?
I don't know.
And expectations? I don't know.
I don't know. I can tell you something very interesting, though. The diamond thing. After we're done, I'll try and find it tonight. If I can, I'll find it tomorrow. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
The only other instance of a person who I know for a fact that have seen the console, and I only know this because he emailed me the day before I released the video about the console. If he would email me after, I could not know because I already spoke about it. But he had no way of knowing any of this. And he sent me, and I have a timestamp on the email, thank God, right? They gave me all this information about what he's seeing, and he described exactly what I'm seeing with the console. So I know at least there's one more person who's seeing it. I had other people tell me, but I don't have a way to know if they. But he described it to me. And one of the things that appears in the console is this suit. It kind of looks like an Iron Man suit, like it just hovers there. And I could never make it work. I don't know what to do with it. It's just always there. And every time I try to approach it, it just kind of recedes from me in the same distance. And I was like, and I tried everything. I tried to focus and do all kinds of things and with my mind and all, nothing. He said he managed to make the suit do something one time. I said, really? What did he do? He said, I was in front of the mirror and the suit engulfed me and I became fully made out of diamond.
Oh, bullshit.
I'll send you the email.
Wow. Okay, let's have another wow moment. There was another thing that happened to me, very similar to what you're saying. which is in front of me, and it rose out of the sidewalk that I was walking on, this doorway, and it comes out of the ground, and it's like stone with the stone lentil across the top, right? Kind of looked like the pie, right? It looked like pie.
Mhm.
But it rises out of the ground, and there's a dark doorway in the middle of it. My guide goes, okay. I'm telling him things that I've never said before, right? So this is all first time stuff for everybody. I keep this stuff private, but I'm out of the closet now, right? Anyway, my guide says, go through the door. I said, okay. And I'm walking, and the door comes up and then stops and then recedes as I'm walking towards it. And I couldn't get to it. And I was almost running. And it was just staying in front of me. And then it went into the ground and was gone.
Yeah, they want us to do something else, and I don't know what that is yet. There's something else with our attention. That's what I think the code is part of there to do, which is to train us to do this, to look at information differently. It's there, I think, to train us to look differently so we can see something and interact with these objects that are more than three-dimensional. And that actually brings me back to the point was what I was trying to say is that about the code. So under the banner of everything they showed me, it's not clear to me yet whether they wrote the code or are they just the management company,
right?
And they're basically catering to the error correction of the thing. But there's an architect, like there's a higher. That's not clear to me yet.
Could it be? I was going to say use your imagination, but you don't have any problem with that. Could it
actually
be
I do. I'm somewhere on the, what is it called, the thing that you can't imagine objects thing. So like I forget what it's called, aphantasia. So I have a form of this. So there's gradation. So it's not all or nothing. I'm somewhere there. So actually I do have quite the problem to use my imagination.
But I mean, could it be something as crazy as, because I love video games. Well, specifically, I used to play a lot of video games. Now I'm just into racing simulators, and I have the whole cockpit setup and motion simulation and all of that. And I love that. But it's so immersive. You brought up the Oculus or whatever earlier. It's so immersive, and I love that. And being able to connect to everybody on this planet and it's crazy how fun it is, but how realistic it's starting to become. But another civilization off this planet, I often think, is there some 12-year-old alien kid in his bedroom, right, with his mom pounding on the front door, come down and eat dinner. Hold on, Mom. I've got Danny Goler talking to Jimmy Church right now. You know what I mean? And they're playing a friggin' video game, of the universe, and that's where we are. And you mentioned simulation earlier, and I just wonder, could it be something like that?
No.
You don't think so?
No, there's some.
You do have an imagination problem. You do have an imagination problem.
I do. Yeah. The problem with my imagination is that they overrode it by telling me what's going on.
Right. Well, so back to the code.
Yeah.
The source of the code originates somewhere. Here's my question. Is it as old as the universe? Is the code infinitely
it's
old?
older? Yeah, I think it permeates all of the simulations. So not just our universe, but all of them. Yeah. And there's like systems upon systems, as you can imagine. It's like simulations all the way up. And then there is this unifying thing. But from my observation, it is not the thing we call
God,
higher self, or God,
right,
or our unified field. Like, no. It's way beyond that. It's like what we like. what we would call our unified self, the higher self and all of that stuff, that's our local group. There are others. So ironically, even though we're all one, there are other ones. So actually, still the case is that there is still plural. And it's only from that interaction is that we can actually meet the other ones, is when we fully unify, at least in its potential to execute for a certain period of time, then we can actually, our collective face, so to speak, can face the other. Personally, we can't. We will not comprehend. So when we will unify, and this is where it's all building to, we will be able to interact with the others, if you want to talk about the disclosure. So beyond that point, it's all kind of like a preparation for this like revelation that we're not alone, but it will be happening when we're already fully unified into this unified consciousness, whatever we are. And the outer will mimic the inner. So like, as opposed to what a lot of people believe, which is like, technology is like here to end us. No. This is the expression of the divine. Like the internet is the expression of the unification made flesh, like made real, right?
Right.
And then so it goes. And it's just, now it's a matter of integration. How do we integrate into the system? And there's always this fear like, wait, but what if I go and it's a trap? Well, that's what faith is. Like, you either enter with a full heart or you don't enter. It's just how it goes. And there's all these like what you would think are outdated religious motifs that all of a sudden spring back into action, and you go, oh, that's what it was about. It was about
100%.
particular software, so you can face what the real thing is, the way it will execute, right? And ultimately, what I saw is that, well, depending how high you want to go, so like the full function from the biggest picture I've ever seen, me personally, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily, I think that that's how things are, but that's what was shown to me, that the unified all, there you go. That's yeah. Then we're gonna have to cut that one, I guess. Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? Was that you?
I think it's DOS, but there's no coincidences.
It's not. That was bizarre. It didn't come from me.
No, it's the OS of the system, but it usually, I've never seen the down finger. So yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that for now. I gotta listen.
Okay, so if that's the case, then, and this, I don't want to sound cavalier like I'm cracking jokes.
Sure. Big
Bang didn't happen.
No, it happened. Yeah. No, everything that the science knows is not wrong. It's just that it's incomplete. When we're saying the simulation, it's not of Earth. It's behind the laws of physics. It's still the law.
So so stay with me.
Sure.
Put your imagination hat back on. Okay. Yeah, there you go. What I'm suggesting here is that the creator who wrote the code, whenever that was, but it was obviously before the Big Bang.
Yeah.
It's infinitely old.
Well, the Big Bang was not the beginning of everything. It's just the beginning of our universe.
I'm talking about way before, the origins of this and the creation of all that there is in, whether it's a simulation or real. That part doesn't matter.
By the way, just to cut you off a little bit there. The simulation does not mean fake. The environment is simulating something, but it's not mimicking anything. It's not like it's simulating a function thereafter, but it's not like you're fake. As long as there's conscious awareness of any kind, that's real.
That's right.
Yeah. Just to
So this has to have existed forever. What I'm suggesting here is the origins at 13.8 billion years ago was not the origins of everything, and that wasn't the beginning of time.
No, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe of our time, but not of the existential, unified whatever. Yeah, no, that's definitely not the beginning of that. In fact, that is the question, it seems.
Yeah, that is the question. That's the one. I mean, whatever that is, and I don't even have a word for it, but we all learn. We go to school. We wait. We're born. We learn. We learn. Well, whatever this is has been learning for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Really smart, right? And so to question or think about what this could possibly be, it's from an intelligence that we have a long ways to go to catch up to.
Yeah, we will never catch up to it, but there's hints of the relevant truths that are uniformly true for everything forever.
Such as?
The universal law that the Buddha talked about, like the karmic cycle, right? That's just true no matter what, because that's the structure of existence. So like when you behave a certain way, it has certain, it's not even implications. It's now you are that. You did that, so now you are that. Therefore, you now proceed to that, because that's what you are. And because you showed that by doing that. And that is an unmovable, unshakable, it's just how it is. And that would be one example of things just how the way they are.
What's more important, that law or math?
Oh, definitely that law.
Yeah.
Because that law implies, no math or no math, do you want to occupy most of your existence in infinite suffering or in infinite bliss? It's it's that simple.
What is that? I don't want to use the word paradox. Is that a conundrum that science does have, that maybe too much is put into math and
No, two different.
the other side of it isn't considered?
Math is a language, to the best of our knowledge, the best language to describe our the relationships of our physical world, and also some pretty wild logical truths, which eventually we'll have to be able to execute somewhere. So yeah, it's the best language to describe that. They're not. There's two different domains. So like the truths about your experience, they're different. They would require different kind of tools to encapsulate them. In fact, have you ever? And this is to be super clear. This is not to put you on the spot. I'm just asking to have a reference. Have you ever meditated proper? Like have you ever done a retreat or anything like this?
Yes.
Okay. So when you do more than just like sitting, with an app at home, and you actually go to like either a Vipassana retreat or Dzogchen, whatever.
3 days of breathing exercises.
There
Yes.
you go. So when you
Okay.
start getting into these like higher meditative states, it becomes clear to you that it's actually not hyperbole to say that certain truths cannot be encapsulated with linguistically or with words. It's almost like whatever is true of this understanding you just had, the second you try and chip at it with words, you by definition remove it from what it is. So then the second you start saying something about it, it just dissipates. Like you can't say it. So that's true. So my intuition is that there are levels of truths and there's modalities to interact with these truths. And mathematics is just one modality of describing something that is true about a particular environment we happen to find ourselves in. But there are other environments that do not succumb to this kind of linguistic representation. They just what they are, and the only way to interact with them is by direct expression with them. So like they would have a relationship with you, which is what a lot of people are experiencing when they go into these higher spaces. These kind of truths, they just are what they are directly, which by the way, this is one of the confusions that I would fully agree with you on the scientific from the scientific perspective. When scientists becoming convinced that the only thing that is worth considering as real are the things that we can say something about in around, like say something about. So from the side, from a third person, versus actually just have a direct experience of them. That kind of stuff, this is what the sentiment that Sean Carroll was expressing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually completely backwards. Like most things in existence do not care if you can describe them. They just are what they are. And the only way to know what they are is to directly face them and fully absorb them, enter the now together, where you kind of truly immersed in the truth of what that is or who that is. And we do this on small scales here. This is why when you do mushrooms or something, you go outside and you look at a tree, you're so mesmerized by the tree because you see it actually for the first time. You go, it's not descriptive. You're not saying tree. You fully absorb what it is. Most things in existence are like that. So I would say that it's not competition between mathematics and this other law. You definitely want to align yourself with some form of an ethical framework in such a way that you don't have to check yourself. So like you actually, it emanates from your somatic understanding versus just your logical understanding.
It's the only way you can grow.
Yes.
Not only as a species, but as an individual. When you look at each example where things took radical turns in civilization, always involved like three things, maybe four at the same time working together. You had religion, math, engineering, you know what I mean? All working together at the same time, not in competition. You look at ancient Egypt, right? Look at ancient Sumer. Look at Central and South America, or the indigenous cultures in North America, where they were all, and you take that all the way up to friggin' Newton, who had a firm grasp on religion, Hermeticism, right? Physics, math. And to say today, well, there's still parts of Newtonian physics that, we base everything on today. Well, of course. But how did he get to that point? He had freedom of thought in all areas without any barrier. You know what I mean? No roadblocks. No bumpers to keep you,
Where we're going, Marty, there are no roads.
Yeah, there are no roads. And today that's exactly what we lack. If you go to the spiritual side, you're lacking the other side. Nobody wants to blend. Nobody wants to work together.
It's competition still. It's just like, come on, man. Like, haven't we learned? It's like...
What? One last question before, and I like to ask this of most of my guests. E.T. shows up, and Danny Goler's got one question. What is it?
Oh, man.
You only get one, man. Only
I know.
one.
I think I would like to know the extent to which they know the why.
You know what mine is?
What?
I'll give you something to think about. Mine is, this audience has heard this 1,000 times, but they're going to hear it again. My question to ET is, how did you survive? How did you survive? How did you get past it? How did you get past it to where you actually survived yourselves? How did you do it? I think that's the advice that we really need. But that's what I would ask. Not propulsion systems or, what's the secret of the universe? What's the key? What does 42 mean? I'm not going to do that. No. How did you guys survive? That would be my question.
Yeah, well, that's, my question is always like, that's my question. But I actually think that I do see a glimmer of an answer to the question you have. And it is just that unification. It's the unification of the understanding that you truly are not separate from everything that's going on. But how do you embody that? That's really and the reason that I said that I'm a little more, before we jump off, maybe just leave on this positive note. The reason that I said I'm more optimistic is not necessarily because of psychedelics. I'm just seeing hints of this in the world now. I'm seeing both, even in the place where it's the most pronounced, this battling, right, between the political left and right. Even there, I'm already seeing there's some voices that are a lot more mature, and they truly are representing a different flavor of a conversation that includes the perspective of the other. And that's the thing that actually gives me hope.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about being us is that we're all different. That's it. That's it. Yeah. That's the best part of it. You know, I say this all the time, and I want to thank you. Great, and we're going to be hanging out, everybody. Conscious Life Expo coming up this February. Danny's not only going to be there, but if you want to meet him, come and hang out. And I'm going to be there, and I might even introduce Danny. Okay, so
I'm honored.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see if we can get that into the schedule. But I'm joking. That was a bad joke. Let me see. Let me see if I can squeeze that in. I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. Is that the thing that makes me most happy? And it's not pizza. It's not my Harley. It's not these guitars. You know what makes me most happy? Hanging out with somebody that I can have a conversation with that I've never had before. And you only get that from somebody that's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to hang out with people that are just like you, you don't grow. You don't learn. I want to be around somebody that, you know what, we can push back. I love it tonight when you said, well, no, Jimmy, no, not exactly. Well, okay, so tell me, you know, and that's what I enjoy. Danny, thank you so much. Great conversation. We've got your links below. Where's the best way to reach out to you and check out what you're doing?
My YouTube channel, Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts, and my Instagram, Danny Goler, and then the rest you'll find there.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, sir. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'll see you in a couple of months, and I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you so
Jimmy.
much,
I appreciate it.
Great work.
Thank you.
The absolute best. We do have Danny's links below. Thank you so much, Danny. And again, on our website and throughout social media. Great conversation. Perfect night for me on the show. They're all pretty perfect, aren't they? And thank you so much, Danny. And with that, what was I going to say? Oh, tomorrow night on the show, AMA, AJA, where you get to come in here and ask me anything. It's always a fun night. We do that once a month. We're doing that tomorrow night. So I'll see everybody tomorrow. But until then, all I've got is go back, Lee Tappy.
Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.